Well, good evening, everybody. Good evening. I am waiting for Irem. Ah, there she is.
Hello.
Yes.
Okay. Oops. Sorry.
Okay, let's
Okay.
try.
Yeah. Okay. Now it works.
It works.
It's
Finally.
yeah. I don't know what happened before, and then it
Mhm.
said to me like you must rotate your phone to be able to join. I don't
Yeah.
know. Maybe yeah. It's okay. Anyways, hi.
Finally.
Finally, yeah.
Good. Good.
Uh,
Okay.
Great.
Good evening,
Okay.
everybody. Sorry for all the fuzz. I hope you're still all there. Well, maybe not all, but as many as possible. Hi, Annelies. Good evening.
What I can do also, actually, I can share this now to my Facebook page, my wall, so then people who are waiting our session on my on my Facebook, they can also access this. Okay,
Okay. Oh
great.
my,
Okay.
Jan is there. My beer drinking my beer drinking German friend.
Okay, great. So, hi again, Frank.
Well, good evening. Good evening.
Good evening. Okay, so today we are talking about Robert Parker, the man.
Yes. Well, we said the man because it's not about the wine magazine as it is now, of course.
Yeah.
It's about the
Yes.
person. Yes.
Yeah. So yes, I mean we have been doing a few sessions where we were relating to Robert Parker
True.
constantly. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
we said, okay, maybe we should dedicate an entire session to him,
Yeah.
and it's worth because
Hmm.
he's super influential and in the wine industry.
He
So
was.
actually, yeah, I mean there's so many parts that we can talk about Robert Parker.
Hmm.
But do you have a way that you want to start, or should we start from the latest happenings with the bitter fight against Parker?
Yeah. Yeah, as you like. As you
Mm-hmm.
like. Yeah. Bitter fight against Parker.
Parker. Because
Yeah.
also on the other hand, when we talk about Robert Parker, yes, obviously we will talk about himself, but it means also to kind of look in the wine industry for about 40 plus years, because he started
True.
with his magazine in 78,
Yeah.
and then he retired, and then he became a full, I mean not retired, sorry, he quitted his legal job like being a lawyer, and then in
Yeah.
84 he became a full-time wine critic. So,
Yeah.
and then many things have happened, so it's going to be like
Yeah.
a kind of doing a look to the what happened in the industry, in the 40 years, and
Yeah.
then
But
why we have a bitter fight now against them.
yeah. Yeah, well, I don't know if it's a bitter fight, but
Yeah,
it's
but
true that the when people speak of Parker and Parkerized wines nowadays, it is usually with a very negative connotation, and I don't like that actually because it that lacks perspective in a way.
mhm.
So yeah, as you just said, Parker Parker became important in the 1980s. Let's start with that. And actually, in the U.S., as you say, he started 1978, and it took him kind of 10 years to become a big person in Europe as well.
Mhm.
His breakthrough was 1982 vintage in Bordeaux, meaning his real breakthrough was 1983. You could say in a way, and the background of that was that he was kind of the only wine writer who saw the potential, the great potential of 1982. which at the beginning was not really considered a great vintage in Bordeaux or in the UK, where at that time all the leading wine writers were based. And Parker came to taste in 1982 in the spring of 1982 and realized it was a great vintage, and that kind of made it the Bordeaux superstar. And from there on, he became sort of the superstar, generally speaking, with one exception, of course, that's Bourgogne. Bourgogne was that never really worked for him. Which is why for Bourgogne he quite soon took in somebody else to write the Bourgogne notes and do the scores. Yeah. Otherwise, he became, of course, the leading wine critic in the world. And I think actually a lot of criticism on Parker was sheer envy later on, because he basically put all other wine writers in his shadow. And I mean, of course, there are many ways you can look at the success of a wine writer. It's maybe how many books he has sold or whatever. But for me, the real success of a wine critic, at least, is how many cases of wine does he manage to get sold. And in that respect, Parker was and still is unique, because his notes really meant something for selling wine. High scores from Parker meant you sold your wine. High score for a vintage, Bordeaux, for example, meant the vintage would sell well, prices would go up. Nobody else in the whole world has ever been able to achieve that. And then that was deep.
Yeah, he set the bar really high up, right? Now it's also like, because yes, last year he officially retired.
Yeah.
But now it's gonna be like, I think it creates new limitations for the current wine writers or upcoming writers, because he set the bar so high.
Yeah, yeah. But in a way, I think his influence was really unique, because nobody else ever had that influence before. And for the moment, at least, nobody else will have that influence, because and of course you can ask yourself the question, why was he actually so influential? Was that because he was the only one? No, he wasn't. There were still plenty of other wine writers, wine magazines that were doing a good job. But why was he so influential? And for me, I think there were basically two reasons. First reason is he is a great taster. He's absolutely a great taster, and maybe even the best of all. And of course, I'm sure many journalists will hate to hear that, because everybody thinks he or she is the greatest taster. But I think and the second reason was that he, and this is where he is, with today's perspective, often badly interpreted, but he was a spokesman for what the world liked to drink at that time. And this is something what a lot of people will deny now, but what we now call Parkerized wines, which stands for maybe concentrated, ripe wines, lots of oak influence, etc. But it was something that a lot of people really enjoyed at that period. That we now take a slightly different view on the matter is possible, but that doesn't mean that Parker was an idiot, or that people who followed his recommendations were idiots. Times have changed, and I think the Parker style, if there was a Parker style at all, was a reaction to the times before, when overall the quality of wine in Europe was much lower than it is nowadays, where maybe also the climate change hadn't kicked in yet, so wines were quite often a bit thinner, a bit more acid, not so ripe tannins, whatever. And he sort of changed that, he influenced that. He made people aware of the fact that ripe tannin is necessary for great quality red wine. With that, he sort of pushed producers to harvest later, to pay more attention, and people loved it, and that's why they bought the wines. So was the connection. There was a very strong connection between what Parker liked and what the market liked. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not that he created the market. That's not the way it works. It is that's the chicken or the egg, But in a way, it's like a circle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yeah, well, that's the way I see it.
Yeah, but also on the other hand, yes, we're not gonna talk about that much about this point systems because we also did an entire
We
session
already
about
did
the
it. Yeah,
points. Yeah, but
yeah.
also on the other hand, didn't also a little bit created, I mean, also influenced producers to chase points and then create styles, different wines that Robert Parker likes.
Of course, that happened. You cannot deny that. And because, as I said, his scores meant the difference between selling or not selling. It was a bit exaggerated, but in a way it did. And of course, people were adapting their styles to get high scores from Parker. Sure, they did,
Mm-hmm.
because at the end of the day, every wine producer wants to sell. On the other hand, we shouldn't exaggerate it too much at the same time. I'm particularly thinking of Michel Rolland because there was a wide criticism that Rolland and Parker were maybe too close, that Rolland wines were always getting high scores, that Rolland developed a kind of a recipe to make uh, high score wines.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not exactly true. That's not what Roland did actually, and that's even not really his influence. But I would rather return to saying that Roland, as an example, was another one who sort of I don't know, maybe felt what people liked in wine.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Roland ever had a recipe to do
So,
it.
right.
No.
Uh, there is a comment. Giannis says that Frank, a little bit louder, please.
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
So okay. So I don't know if you can hear us well. Okay. So I mean, I hear you well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So also other thing. Do you think? I mean, he has been in the industry for so long, and they say that, or he has been saying that he tastes normally. I mean, before he got retired, 10,000 wines per year. Uh, I mean, obviously, he tastes a lot of
A
wines.
lot, a lot, a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think his taste, or maybe does his taste evolve during the time during this period? Did his I don't know, did it change or did it influence on his writing?
I'm not sure about that. I
Mm-hmm.
would be able to say that. Not a lot, maybe. Not a lot. But most people taste do not change. Your taste, like your palate, doesn't change that much over time. I don't think that is what's happening. But it's true that he tasted a lot of wines. He also tasted a lot of wines blind. I happen to know that from a good friend in Bordeaux that he would do a lot of his tastings, maybe not all, but a lot of his tastings he did blind. So he actually asked chateaus to send samples to certain negociants who would then make sure that all the wines were blinded, and then he would
Mm-hmm.
taste them blind. But it's true that he was tasting huge quantities of wine in a very disciplined, very focused way. Um, and the crazy thing about that is because a lot of people would say, but that's impossible to taste so many wines on a day. And my answer to that is, it's also too impossible for us to run the marathon. I cannot run a marathon. I never could, and I never will. That doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean it is impossible to run a marathon, right? So
Yeah.
don't compare other people with what you are capable of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and that's my point actually, if you look at, if you, the problem is that most people were just looking on the right part of the page, just looking at the scores.
Yeah.
But for
They're not
every
reading.
wine, yeah, but for every wine there was a tasting note. And most people didn't care about the tasting notes, but if you read them carefully, you would see that they were very detailed, very well written. And I will never forget that one evening I did a tasting for a group of wine lovers in the Netherlands where we made a selection of, I don't know, 10 or 15 wines which had good Parker notes, not 100-point wines, but good ratings. and we actually took the time to sort of read out loud his tasting notes, and we were
Mm-hmm.
so impressed because they were beautiful tasting notes, exactly depicting what was in that glass. And that is another great quality to be able to do that. And it proves actually that his work was not hasty, it was not too fast, it was not just imagining a score in 2 seconds and take the next wine. But he
Mm-hmm.
had damn good tasting notes.
Mm-hmm.
That actually attracted you to the wine.
Yeah, and he's also a good, really great communicator, right? So he's like
Yeah,
not only apart from tasting and scoring, but as you said, he reflects what he's tasting to the consumer. But
yeah,
also he's I don't know, he seems, I mean, I don't know if you see him in person, but he seems really direct and genuine, and
yeah.
he has really great skills to communicate with the readers, with the
True.
wine consumers.
True, but interestingly enough, just by writing, because I only met him once. I saw him once when he was on a wine symposium in Logroño, organized by Pancho Campo, and he was not really a great speaker, and his sort of personal performance was. I mean, he was sympathetic. He seemed to me a really nice guy, by the way, very down to earth. But he
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a great speaker, and he didn't seem to feel very at ease with that. And because actually writing and presenting are two very different skills.
Different things. Mm-hmm.
So not every great wine writer is also a great presenter. For that matter, sorry to say, Jancis Robinson for me is a bit the same. She is one of the greatest wine writers. She's not an electrifying person at stage. That's not her skill.
Yeah, I attended to one of her tastings in it was 4 years ago. No, was it four? No, 2 years ago. Elementaria,
Mm-hmm.
not this one, but the 2 years before that.
Sure.
Yeah, she did a tasting. There was about Spanish wines where we
Yeah.
tasted, I think, like 12 wines.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I cannot say that I it was my favorite tasting ever I attended. Yeah, she's a bit dry,
Yeah, she is.
but
She's
yeah.
serious, and and by the way, I happen to know her a bit personally, and she's a very nice person. I'm not saying that, but yeah, no, that's true. Her stage performance is not that great. That's
Hmm.
not skill. It doesn't have to be, by the way. She's a great
Yeah,
writer. Enough.
exactly. Yeah. And also, like going back to Robert Parker, like,
Mm-hmm.
do you think also if he became so influential in the wine industry because he started the like more consumer focused wine criticism, independent and subscribe based?
Well, yes, I guess so. I mean, I suppose there are plenty of writers who. I mean, you've got maybe two kinds of writers. You've got writers who just want to show off or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got the writers that all the time have their readers in mind. The person, they're thinking of the person who is reading what they write, and and he was certainly an example of that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But wine writing in general, of course, is a very difficult métier because actually, to be very fair, it doesn't pay at all. Um, and the amount of wine writers in the world who can live just from writing about wine and not doing any tastings or presentations or a second job or a main job next to it is very limited. It almost doesn't pay, and the internet made it worse because with all the bloggers and the people who write for free, so to say, it only made it worse.
Yeah. Now
But
everyone is a writer.
not better. Yeah, everybody is right in his
Yeah.
own way. Yeah,
Yeah.
true.
But also, actually, just what you said, it also makes it very difficult to stay independent because it's a
Yeah,
job that it doesn't pay you well.
no,
And if you are independent, even, I mean,
most writers are not independent, and and I don't blame them for it.
mm-hmm,
Hopefully they wouldn't pretend they were, but there are the most, of course, if you run a wine magazine, you need the advertisements, you need the producers to advertise. If you want advertisements, you cannot be harsh on people. It wouldn't
mm-hmm,
work. So That's already one thing.
No.
And then you've got the other category, which are the writers. But you know, it's complicated because if you want to write interesting information, you need information from producers. But if you are too honest and the producers don't like you any longer, you won't get that information. Not to talk about the free lunches, the dinners, and the invitations,
It's just, yeah.
which are very important.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Excuse me. Actually, there's a very interesting question from Maria. She's asking, if Robert Parker was at his peak now, would he use Instagram, Facebook as a social media influencer? He never actually the website, the
Why not?
Robert Wine Advocate. He's not really. It's not very big on social media, no.
No, that's true. That's true. But he's from another time. I'm not sure. It's difficult to say. He doesn't seem to me the person who would, sort of stick to what he did and not be open to change. But that's hard to say. Probably he would do something with it. Yeah? But this, of course, his basis was from the start printed magazine. But at that time, there was nothing else.
Nothing else. Yeah, it was just a newsletter. Also, he was doing. I mean, yes, newsletter. No,
A magazine. It was
magazine. Yeah, magazine. Yeah. So also, yes, now he's retired officially, but before he is being retired, he kind of built a very strong team. I think he did like 2 years of transition to his team, and he has now he works with really very good writers for each region. But do you think it's going to change things, because now he's not really officially writing and scoring the wines? Maybe not now, but in 2 or 3 years it's going to lose the popularity. Robert Parker's Wine Advocate.
I think it already did a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, of course, of course. But I don't think the Wine Advocate is. I'm not saying it isn't good anymore, and there are some very experienced and very knowledgeable writers working for the Wine Advocate now, from Luis Gutierrez to Stefan Reinhardt and whatever, good people. So I'm not saying it isn't good anymore, but it's not the same anymore with him behind it. And as far as I can judge it, the times that a high score from the Wine Advocate would guarantee sales, these times are over. So I cannot believe that the Wine Advocate hasn't lost a lot of its importance already. I'm not saying it's quality, but it's important.
Because when he started, or like not only started, but like let's say 5-10 years ago, was he the only one who was writing?
No.
Writing, scoring. What did he always had a team?
No, yes. I think.
I mean, writing for Wine Advocate.
In the very early days, he was alone, and then later on, I think his first step was to add somebody for Bourgogne. Wasn't that Robani? I'm not sure actually. And then later on, he got a few more people like Jay Miller, which turned completely wrong, of course, because that's created Jumilla Gate and the downfall of Pancho Campo, Master of Wine. Jay Miller, who did Spain for him. And I think the team as it is now, with Stefan Reinhardt and Luis Gutierrez and all that, I'm not sure if he actually created that team. My feeling is that team came together once he had sold it already. But
could be.
and the new owner collected those people because Parker, in the 3 years that he was still involved, I think the only thing he continued to do was Bordeaux and Rhone Valley, maybe. 100% sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. The team came together when he sold the shares.
Yeah. Could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no matter what, I mean, you like it or you don't like it, or you agree with his style or you don't agree with his style. He changed many things in the industry, no? Or like he became very influential, the most influential winemakers.
And I think is with any kind of critic, whether it's a literature critic or a movie critic, everybody finds the critics that sort of suit his or her taste. It's the way it works. And at a certain moment, you realize that a certain movie critic likes the same movies as you like. You begin to see that whenever this critic recommends a movie, you will like it as well. And it's the same with wine. You have to find the critic that represents your taste best, and
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Yeah, exactly. And also about this tasting, question for you, Frank. Did you taste 2003 Chateau Pavis? If so, what is your opinion?
Mm. Yes, he's asking that because this wine created a huge debate between
Mm.
Parker and Jancis Robinson, if I remember well. Was it 2003? Actually, I think so.
Mm.
No,
Mm-hmm.
where Parker gave it I don't know 100 points or close to 100 points, and Jancis said this is undrinkable. If I want that, I'd rather have a port wine, and then they sort of openly criticized each other. Um, but no, I never tasted Chateau Pavis. But I'll give you one honest opinion on Chateau Pavis. For me, a Chateau Pavis is not a Premier Cru Classé. It shouldn't be either. It's
Mm-hmm.
overrated, overpaid wine.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Okay.
and yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Frank. Also about this, I think he gave only like he normally he didn't really give much 100 points in the
No,
entire like he.
no, not that many. Although he maybe gave a bit more at the end than he did in the beginning. But it's true, there were not that many. And actually, I remember the times that there were very posh 100 points tastings, and for people with money because they were always, of course, very expensive wines. But
Mhm.
I never attended one, to be honest. No,
Mhm. Yeah. One last question. Would Parker be as popular if he just wrote tasting notes and not add points?
no,
No.
probably no.
Yeah.
The points were really really helpful. Yeah,
Yeah.
people. We all know it doesn't make much sense. We all know that it's a bit strange that one wine gets 94 and the next one 96 points, and what does that really mean? Nevertheless, we all seem to like it to some extent.
Yeah.
But you replace that by a score of 1 to 20, doesn't make a difference. The idea is exactly the same.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because now also the thing is, I think people are getting with this, with everything that's happening, digitalization, uh, smartphones, people are getting lazy and they don't read. Now,
Yeah,
the points are much catchy, and then also it increases his popularity.
yeah. Well, maybe Vivino is now the new Parker. Although I do not think that Vivino influences winemakers, but it does. It certainly influences consumers.
Consumers, yeah. Yeah.
I heard. I know that the owner of Vivino, I think it's a Danish company, states
Hmm.
that Vivino ratings are really very comparable to ratings by important wine writers. I do not believe that at all, because at
Hmm.
Vivino, consumers rate wines with the price in mind. And
Yeah.
know that wine writers do that as well. They shouldn't, but they do. But consumers do it even much more.
Yeah.
Much.
And
So
also in Vivino, it's really much based on the quality and value ratio.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
It is as useless as TripAdvisor rating. So complete rubbish. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. Albert is asking a question about the points. Albert, we did an entire session about 100 point system. It's on YouTube. You can go and watch that, and then it will answer your question, that
Hmm.
session.
Hmm.
Okay, great. And also, Carlos, again, same labels are full of medals and points. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can also refer that session.
Yeah.
Okay, great. We had some difficulties to start the session, but I think we wrapped up our time.
Yeah.
Thank you, Frank. Yeah, we
Yeah.
managed.
Good to see everybody. So many familiar names coming by. We haven't planned next week yet. We're not doing it on Friday evening, but here we have a long weekend. Not that anyone is going anywhere, but nevertheless, weekend. But I heard that 1st of July we can go to Spain again.
Oh, really? Okay, so then,
Yes,
you
yeah,
know
yeah.
what? Actually, it will be interesting if you could come or we can manage to see each other. Maybe we can do a session, like a physical session, and then we can post it.
Okay, but don't tell my wife. I cannot tell my wife about you. Come on. Not on Facebook.
Okay, we'll go to the winery, you know, for work.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Ooh,
Thank you.
good. Have a nice weekend,
You
everybody.
too. And then we'll decide for next week's sessions what to do, where to do, and then we'll post about it.
Suggestions are always welcome.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye,
See you.
Frank.
Bye.
Bye.